What is going on, everybody? It's another Tuesday evening, so y'all know what time it is. It's another Right to Real Love live show. As y'all can see, me and my lovely co-host Tatiana are back this
Yay.
week, and we got two very special guests joining us, man. My girl Tara and my man Heath. How you guys doing tonight?
We good. We're good.
Welcome.
Thank you
Yes, yes,
for
yo,
having us on the
it's a
show,
blessing.
Jay and Tatiana.
Hold on, say that again,
I
Heath.
was saying, thank you for having us on the show, Jay and Tatiana. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Truly an honor. Truly an honor. Yo, I know last week was fireworks, and I know the both of y'all, like heat, you bring the heat, Tara bring the vibe, and already know we got a good time that's gonna happen tonight. We diving into a dope topic, gonna be talking about the signs that a woman is forming soul ties with a man. So this thing is probably gonna get deep, especially when my man Heath on here, especially with Tara on here. I know we probably gonna get deep tonight. So you guys definitely buckle in for a good show. Before we get into it, I want to allow each of our special guests to introduce themselves, let you guys know a little bit about them. So let's start with ladies first. Tara, let the people know a little bit about you.
What's up, family? I am Tara Chantel. I am 27 years young. I am on a solo mission, choosing this consciously single lifestyle. And I am an author, a filmmaker, a content creator. We don't limit ourselves out here.
Yo, you doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and yo, you are definitely putting the work in. I definitely would advise anybody, if you're on the tube right now, go check in the description. Got a link to Tara's channel for you guys to go check her out and subscribe. Make sure y'all show her some love, and definitely got to come over to my man Heath. What's going on with you, bro? Let the people know a little bit about you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. So my name is Heath Wiggins. I am a relationship consultant. Like in the movie Hitch, that's what I do. What I do it for singles and for couples. I'm married. I've been married 24 years. My wife and I are celebrating this year our 25th year anniversary, and so we work together. We have, like you see the woods behind me. We created sort of an ecosystem of apparatus that help couples improve their communication, trust, and leadership. And that's kind of what we focus on. I have recently, over the last maybe 5 years, taken a slight delve into production. So, like, I'm a producer of a podcast. I work with a company called Elevation Global Media Group. Shout out to Elevation Global Media Group. And we're out in Towson, Maryland. And we're a radio station, online radio station, production company, so forth. So I'm the operating officer there, and I'm producer of the podcast for that show. So I'm doing a lot.
Yo, we got a young lady and a gentleman tonight that are definitely putting in work all over the place, and I'm super excited to have y'all both on the show. Tatiana, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Jay. How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing good. Definitely looking forward to tonight's show. This is gonna be a good one, y'all. So I'm gonna kick things off just so that we can lay a groundwork. Since we're talking about soul ties, let's start with the most obvious question: what exactly are they? Coming over to you, Tara. What's a soul tie from your perspective?
So, a soul tie for me is creating a sexual bond with someone. And not only just sexual, but that's like how to really become one with someone is when you lay down with them. And this is when you truly share DNA, you share flesh, and then you also share the traumas that someone has, you share their emotions, you share their mindset when you are sexually indulging with them. So it's no such thing as casual sex, how the media is portraying that. Is to get you so addicted to this infatuation by this person. So now your mind is truly in bondage and you truly are creating your own suffering being in a soul tie.
Oh man, yo, that getting a little deep already. I love it. I
Already,
love it. So you
already, already.
giving a little highlights. Coming over to you, Heath, man. How do you define soul ties? What are they to you?
So there's a couple of different definitions I've heard over the years. There's a couple of different experiences I've had with them myself, and I've had clients that have with them. So to me, there's a range of soul ties, right? There's the different levels that one goes to, and also a soul tie is I guess contingent upon one's own maturity, one's own spiritual maturity or emotional maturity or emotional intelligence. So a soul tie to me is a melding of your mind, your heart, and your flesh. Tara talked a little bit about the commingling, if you will, of bodies and fluids, no less. But soul tie goes deeper into that, and we'll talk more about it in detail. But soul ties goes deeper into that because it's a commingling. It's a sort of like when you take two different particles and put them together. It's hard to separate them, and that is what a soul tie is. Some soul ties are good. Some soul ties are not good. But we'll jump into that.
Oh yeah, we definitely go get into that. Can you guys hear me okay? Is my mic all right? Tatiana is letting me know that okay, it's all good now. Okay, perfect. If it's not, definitely let me know. Make sure you guys can hear us throughout the show. But first, before I come over to you, Tatiana, we did get a few comments. So Tiffany says, "Hey Jay, Tatiana, and guest panelists and chatmates, what's up, Tiffany? So glad that you could join us tonight." And my man JD Carter is in the building. Appreciate you for coming by. He says it's good to be here. Shout out to all of you. Yo, shout out to you, JD, man. Definitely glad to have you in here as well, bro. But yeah, Tatiana, what's your take? What is a soul tie from your perspective?
I'm going off what I was taught a soul tie was. Being like growing up in the church and hearing it probably like in my 20s when it came to, sexuality and what that means. Like they didn't dive deep like I feel like we're gonna dive into today. But it basically was a consequence, if you will, of premarital sex or fornication. Like you're just, exchanging, like when you have sex, you're tied to this person forever, and they add this doom and gloom to it. So so for those who have been part of the purity movement in some kind of way, if you grew up in the church, you may have heard that, you may feel like there's a lot of like doom and gloom. Like it feels like you'll never be able to break away from that person. You have all these spirits attached to you. And yes, some of that is true, but soul ties can be broken, deliverance can happen. So those are just a couple of things that I learned growing up from that.
Okay, yo, I appreciate you sharing that. Yo, Tiffany was sharing with us. She says, soul ties, if not broken, can taint a marriage with baggage from past partners. That it definitely can. And we are definitely going to take a deep dive later into some of those impacts of a soul tie. But I got a question to ask, right? I know most of the times people are addressing and talking about soul ties from a more spiritual or religious perspective. And I want to get y'all thoughts. Is soul tie something that is only like relevant within a spiritual context, or does it have validity outside of the spiritual realm? What's your take on that, Sarah?
I feel like it's energy. So you can also, when you are hanging out with someone over and over again, you start picking up traits of them. Like you start saying the same things, y'all have the same body language, and that can be also a soul tie. So I personally think everything is spiritual. So I may just be biased.
Nah, that's fair. That's fair. I ain't mad at that. Heath, what's your take? Do you feel like it only has relevance within a spiritual context, or is there some relevancy to soul ties even outside of the spiritual realm?
There's definitely relevance outside the spiritual realm. I was reading something about soul ties, and somebody was asserting that soul ties is not a biblical concept. It's a relational concept that we have given the name soul tie, and we are attaching biblical principles to what is called a soul tie. So I was like, ooh, that's juicy. I mean, I never thought about it like that. And I think the point that they were making was that in the Bible, there's nothing that says Samson had a soul tie with Delilah, right? But that was a soul tie. We know that to be a soul tie. So I don't have a problem with a definition that we are taking from colloquial worldly environments and applying them to biblical principles. So I think we can take the biblical principles and then attach them to this worldly concept called soul tie. However, what I've learned so I had a client one time, and I was trying to get them to be married the way that I married, and I was trying to get them to do the things the way that I was doing. And I learned that their background is not my background. Their history is not my history. Their perspective, their relationship with God is not my relationship with God. So I learned very early on in my ministry, in my business, not to try to put my personal values on someone else, even though we both are Christians. And so I loosely put biblical principles that I'm pressing someone else to adhere to a soul tie that they would have with somebody else, because their background may lend itself to, depending upon where they are in their spiritual journey, their background may lend itself to very close transfers of fluids, if you will, that they're going through and getting away from. Like we all have probably gone through a journey. I don't know if all of you. Let me just speak for me, huh? That I've gone through a journey where I've had to do away with that lifestyle, and so soul ties were created in that process, for me and for others. And so you may be in that journey of trying to break away from that. So I'm not going to put the standard on you of trying to get rid of that soul tie right now, because you might not be in emotional maturity, spiritual space to be able to handle all that weight that me as a more mature Christian can handle. Because the Bible also talks about don't allow your grace to be someone else's stumbling block. Paraphrase version.
Nah, you make some really great points, man. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to ask this question, is because I think that at the heart, the root of this whole soul ties conversation that we about to have, I think it can apply to a person wherever they may be and whatever their stance may be when it comes to spiritual matters. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to point that out, is that, to your point, Heath, as you mentioned, like, it's not a biblical concept. It's a concept that you can definitely find its roots outside of the Bible, prior to the Bible, and then you can definitely align it with some of the stories, some of the characters, and the things that we see occurring in the Bible. And I think that that can apply to any type of spiritual system that a person is following or may not even be following if you're looking outside of it. But no, that was a great point. Quickly before I come to you, Tatiana, did see a few comments in the chat. So first and foremost, my girl Chris is in the building. What's going on, Chris? So glad to have you joining us. Thank you so much for coming through. My man JD says, when a lady has a child with a man, his DNA, if connected to that woman, is connected to that woman forever, even more so if it's a male child. Okay, dropping some gems now. And then Chris says, ooh, do you know what book in the Bible saying that grace being someone's stumbling block is? Heath, if you can find that for Krista, that'll be helpful. We can share that with her later if you know it. But not coming up to you, Tatiana, do you feel like there's relevance to this topic of soul ties outside of a spiritual context?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not a medical expert, but even what they say about the chemical, physical, biological consequences of having sex with someone else is like that oxytocin, right, or something. There's a bonding or desire that you have with that partner specifically, like especially a woman may crave a man that they're having sex with. Perhaps a man may be craving that same woman. I don't know all the details, but I heard some things. So I think it definitely pertains to people outside of the church or outside of spiritual components, because at the end of the day, God created sex, so that is set for human beings, right? So there's going to be people who do that outside of His will, and people who do it within His will. That doesn't mean that those consequences don't happen, right? So that's what I think about it.
Okay. So let's get down to how soul ties are actually formed. I want to get your take on this, Tara. I know you mentioned it a little bit. You kind of alluded to one of the ways that they are formed, during sexual behavior. But are there any other ways that a soul tie can be formed? Hold on, you muted, Tara. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Yes, just honestly, when you are around someone for a certain period of time, so you have to really be selective with your energy. You have to choose people that is the same reflection of you. So if you see a righteous being, like you are being that, so make sure they are have that display those characteristics as well, because pick up you can pick up people's traits, like birds of a feather flock together. Like people will associate you with who you hang out with, and especially if who you are partnered up with as well. So whoever you're choosing to be your partner, that is a direct deflect of reflection of you as well. So I associate all of that when you are being selective with your friend groups, being selective with your peers, with your business partners. They all play a part in this journey for you.
Great point. Great point. Heath, what's your take? How do you feel soul ties are formed?
That's such a loaded question, because it goes back to, like I said, it depends on who you are. Um, so I'll just give a general response and not go too deep. I'll try not to go too deep. Um,
Not
a
yet.
soul,
we,
a soul
we,
tie, a
we
soul
we
tie,
want you to go there at some point, though.
right? A soul tie can be created, like Tara was saying, with your friends. You can become soul tied to in a gang lifestyle, right? You can become so soul tied to the leader that you just do anything. You can become so soul tied to a church pastor that you will forsake your family and do anything for that pastor. And so I think what happens is you attach your identity to their approval, and you look for, or not just their approval, but their, in some more serious cases, their existence. Like you attach your identity to who they are and who you want to be in their life, and because of that, you become identified. I was talking to this young lady, and she was dating her boyfriend since she was 16, 15, 16. She's 24 now. So she has no identity other than being this man's boyfriend. That's her identity as a teenager, as a young adult, as a woman now. She has an identity, and so she has a soul tie that she couldn't break, and she was trying to break it. He was abusive. He was physically, verbally abusive, but she couldn't break it, because her identity was linked to who he approved her, and how he saw her and how she saw herself through him. And so to me, that's when a soul tie starts to get formed, when your identity becomes associated with a person.
Oh man, that's really good. That's really good there. Before I come to you, Tatiana, we got some more comments. So let me get through these right quick. So Tiffany says, I was just watching a movie, The Gift of Grace, giving a detailed illustration of soul ties. The father was sharing why his son shouldn't indulge in premarital sex. Okay, yeah, yo. So we got people addressing it. Oh yeah, Krista said, thank you, Heath, for sharing that verse with her. She said, I needed that, writing that one down. Okay, okay. And then
But
looks
just
like we
for
got a
everybody else who doesn't know it, it's First Corinthians 8 verse 9. For anybody that doesn't
right,
know
there
it.
we go. Be careful, however, that the exercise of your rights does not become a stumbling block to the weak. Yeah, that was good. That was good. So it looked like we had a question come in from JD. It says, do you all think that soul ties can be one-sided? Okay, I'm gonna save that one. I'm gonna put this one in the chamber, JD, but we definitely gonna come back to it for sure. And then we got my man Black Belt in the building. He says, evening everyone, best fortunes to the panel. Yo, glad to have you joining us tonight as well, bro. So coming up to you, Tatiana, what's your take when it comes to the formation of soul ties?
Yeah, I agree with Tara and Heath on this one because it comes in different forms. Like I've heard, like soul ties can be formed through those emotional bonds. I also just think that just being vulnerable with somebody over a long period of time, you can eventually exchange that, have that soul tie with that person. Especially if you both are vulnerable and open about stuff that you don't share with anyone else. And then talk about the importance of influence on one's soul. And let me know, guys, in the chat or the comments, like if you were taught this about the soul being made up of the mind, the will, and the emotions. So when we are vulnerable with that person, we create a tie with that person. It's almost like how they say twins are when they're not in the same room. If one feels something, the other person feels it. There's like this almost supernatural, you can't explain it feeling that you have about the other person, where their feelings are now your feelings. What their battles are internally become your battles because you had that exchange at some point. So it kind of comes off like that.
Yeah, and that's some deep stuff right there. I'll be honest, like I feel like soul ties can definitely get really, really deep. I would say I think that there's definitely levels to it. I feel like I've had connections to young ladies, but I would say personally, thankfully, nothing that y'all have described to like some of those deep degrees. And I think it could be because of some of the things that you guys have said. Some activity and behavior lends itself to those deeper connections. Like Keith was saying, time could be one. The fact that you've only experienced being with that person and it's comfortable to you to a certain extent. It's a part of your being, your identity, as you even mentioned, Heath. So I think that that's a really great point there. Okay, hold on. We had another comment come in. Oh, my man CEO, what's going on, bro? He's not joining us live tonight, but he's definitely in the chat. We appreciate that, man. So CEO says, in his upbringing, soul ties were taught in the church, but in a way to shame people for having premarital sex, so that it was presented more in a "don't you do it" type of way. Yeah, that's
Right.
a good point. That's a good point. So Black Belt says, I never heard of soul ties. I'm definitely looking forward to this. The only ties I have Yo, you funny, man. You funny, bro. But now we gonna get into it, man. We gonna get into it for sure tonight, man. Hopefully it'll be enlightening and open everybody's eyes out there who may not be familiar with it. So Tara, I want to come back to you with JD's question. Do you think that soul ties are something that's one sided, or do you feel like it's something that's experienced by both the man and the woman in that relationship? Oh, I think you muted.
Okay. Oh, so you know how in this life it's like not cool anymore to like show feelings. So now we're like in this era like whoever likes who more loses. So some people can truly like guard their heart and protect their heart so they know the outcome so they won't end up like in a so like wouldn't be the soul tie wouldn't be so tight, honestly. But some people end up catching more feelings and going deeper involved. And of course, like my brother said about how some people really attach their identity towards another person when they're not aware of their being. So it all comes with awareness. If you know, like, okay, how I get with love, and you won't fall in love, because we should never fall in love. We should intentionally walk towards love as being love. But if you are really conscious with how you move, then of course, yeah, you won't be once you will not, it will be one-sided. But it really all depends on your awareness to self. So that's really a question that how you are giving your heart away, honestly.
Yo, that's real. And like you mentioned, giving your heart away to somebody is that's not a small matter, man. That's definitely something that you should think before you hand your heart over to another person.
I got a
Because
question
yes,
for Tara. When you give your heart to someone, do you I guess I'm just asking, not necessarily you don't have to talk about your personal life, but because I was thinking about how you give your heart to somebody, but in certain circumstances, you may just find yourself, um, love makes you do crazy things, right? And so you may
Like
just give
Will Smith
yourself
said.
over to somebody without sort of willingly wanting to. It just happens. Have you ever experienced that or known somebody that has experienced that?
Yes, just like how Will Smith said, like love really makes you do some crazy things. And I learned that we should never give our heart away because people are going to obligate it to break it. We can give them our time, we can give them our energy, we can give them kind words, we can give them physical touch, but we should never truly give someone our whole entire soul. Honestly, that's really selling your soul for real. So I think I've learned to it's levels to it because every time in the past when I did give my heart away, it was always broken, and that's the worst. That's painful. Honestly, a heartbreak is really can catapult you forward or catapult you back if you use it properly. So I've learned accordingly that I have to protect myself, I have to protect my body, I have to protect my mind overall.
Facts, facts.
nah, that was a good question. I appreciate that. So coming over to you, Heath, to JD's question, do you feel like soul ties can be one sided?
I think they are one-sided. They're both really,
Hmm.
to me. They're both. You can lock somebody down and make them fall head over heels in love with you, um, and you can fall head over heels in love with somebody and they not, and they reciprocate that, and y'all some old Bonnie and Clyde type of stuff. Y'all just doing that crazy, crazy in love type of stuff, surfboard and all that. You can do all that.
Yo, I hear that. Yo, I ain't bad at it. Tatiana, what's your take? One sided, or is it always both people involved?
Yeah, I think it could be one way or both. Because like if you're, let's say you are, you know what I'm saying? Like I just thought about this as I'm speaking right now. There's a new generation of fans, right? We're just now hearing about Cardi B. She went off on her fans. They went off on her. It was a mutual going off. Um, they were really emotionally connected to this artist that they do not know personally. They just know that they love their person's music. They love what she does on social media, et cetera, et cetera. They feel like there's a connection to the point where it's like, I can't, they really cross boundaries with the artist. And it's not just Cardi, it's a whole bunch of other artists too and celebrities nowadays. It's almost as if this fandom nowadays feels like they know this person. And if something were to happen to that said celebrity, it would be a devastating moment for the fans. So I think it's possible for it to be one way in that situation.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And I think for me, what it boils down to is going back to our previous question about how the soul tie is formed. I think that if a soul tie is formed in the physical sense of two people having sex, I think both people are going to have that tie. The one thing that I would say is the degree or the level or the strength of that bond or that connection or that tie for each person may be different based on how they relate to, having sex with another person. But I think whenever a person, to your point, Tatiana, going back to the soul being made up of the mind, the will, and the emotions, if those three things could be absent from one person but present with the other. But I think when you talk about it from the physical sense, I think that since both people consensually agree to that connection, that it's there. Like how, but like I said, to the degree, what level, the strength of that bond, it could differ. And I had a question that came in. Krista was asking me, so Jay, do you believe it's possible to have sex but not form a soul tie? And I personally believe that it's not possible in the sense of that physical connection is there, right? Because I think at the heart of what we talked about, a soul tie is at its root, in the most plainest sense, it's a connection of two people, whether they are in an actual romantic relationship or, as we talked about, it could even be platonic, where two people could form a soul tie, a relationship, or a connection. In this case, clearly, we're talking about two people that are in a consensual sexual relationship. And I think that there's definitely a connection or a bond that's being formed with them that we could actually use the term soul tie to describe. But to my previous point, I think that the level can be different. But to her point, yeah, I think that if a person is having sex with somebody, there's a soul tie or some type of bond or connection that's created. But the strength or the level to or the degree of that bond may be different depending on how that person perceives sex and how it impacts them personally. But that's just my take. I would love to get everybody else on the panel's take. Tara, what's your thoughts?
So, as a woman,
Yes, as a
no
woman.
such it is no such thing as casual sex to me, and it's no way we can truly not form this type of bond. Like my sister said, like we actually form like oxytocin, like the chemical just release, and then we feel like a bond closer when you are inside of us. So, like the illusion to really think like you can really separate the two, like you're not your body, like you not your temple, your soul is not in here, and you think you can just easily get up from that, and like your innocence is not being taken away, is honestly a delusion. So I think we have to think twice of who we choose to be inside of us. Like, you hear that? You hear how deep that is? Choose to be inside of us. So
Right.
of course that's going to be a soul tie and a deeper connection that we can't just walk up from. People are taking pieces of you every time they enter inside of you.
Yeah, and with that point, I would definitely say, from a physical perspective, I think initially it has a greater impact on the woman. And this is a question I was going to ask later down the line. I'm gonna still save it, but I think it bears mentioning about the differences in how soul ties can impact men and women. I think that this is a clear demonstration of that. I think initially a woman is instantly going to have a much closer connection and bond to a man that she's having sex with, as opposed to the man. I think that some men can have sex with a woman, and I believe a connection is formed or a soul tie is formed, but I don't think that it's initially as strong for that man as it is for that woman. To the point that you just made, Sarah, is that a woman is making a decision to allow a man inside of her. And I think that without being too graphic, if he does release inside of her, like that connection only grows to an even greater degree. Like from
Yeah.
a chemical perspective, even if she don't necessarily acknowledge it, the same way our subconscious operates without us necessarily being conscious of the things that's going on, it applies in a very similar fashion. At least that's my take.
And that's what I be especially like creating how you said that. now a child is involved. This is our life force. Sex creates life, but we doing it so recklessly, so thinking that we can just be just abusing this and misusing it and not doing it in the proper fashion with people who we are not supposed to, who is not really committed to us, or who is not even supposed to be on this journey with us. They were supposed to just pass through, but you over here just giving it up left and right, thinking this is the one, but this was just someone. So we have to really slow down. Everybody should not enter your temple, just how everybody, you don't let everybody in your house.
Facts. That's facts right there. Like Tiffany was saying, she said, "Yeah, Tara, inside of you, a deposit that has some chemical reaction. That's real." So, definitely before I get to some of these chat comments, I'm coming, y'all. I want to hear Heath share your perspective. What's your take on what we've been talking about with regards to sex and whether or not that soul tie is formed?
Can I go after Tatiana because her face
Oh
lit
yeah.
up when this came up, and
Oh
I
yeah, by
I
all
wanted to
means.
hear what you had to say.
Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I was agreeing with Tara on that. Like, there's so much that goes into it because it is a deep topic. It is, and it's like sometimes people don't regard sex as important and valuable as it truly is, as it was made to be. Because unfortunately, things happen in our lives that kind of desensitize us to the point where we're like, oh, sex is no big deal. It's whatever. To the point where we're seeing shows like Euphoria, where they're pretty much teasing their classmates who are minors, by the way, like, oh, you're still a virgin? Why are you a virgin? You should just get it over with. That's not something you just get over with. So, to quote, anyway, to quote Dr. Miles Monroe, the late great, he said, he was talking about relationships and about men and women, like whatever a man gives to a woman, she multiplies and gives it back to him. So we have to consider, like, what are you doing, when you're exchanging, when you're giving unto a woman, whether it's the physical, the emotional, the mental, the anything. You want to be careful, like Tara said, like who you're trying to do that with, because you don't want to just multiply with just anybody. And that is whether it's physical, spiritual, whether you can see it or not. So I would just keep that in consideration.
Oh yeah, that's real talk. And before I come to you, Heath, really quickly want to give some shout outs. So shout out to JD Clay. She says, "Good evening, panel and chat mates. So glad to have you join us." And then we had Grandma Joe keeping it real. She's in the building. What is going on? So glad that you are joining us tonight. We appreciate that. And I want to let everybody know that I saw Black Belt and Tori's questions. We're gonna come to them in a minute. Just want to allow Heath to share his perspective, but then I'm definitely gonna come to those comments and questions that you guys shared. Just wanted to make you aware of it. But now the floor is yours, Heath.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick, I'm so glad to hear Tara and Tatiana's perspective on it. It's hard for me to speak as a man what a woman feels when she's having sex with another man. I can't speak from it from an authoritative standpoint. Experientially, though, I have a different experience because there's some hoes out in these streets, and so yeah, there are. I mean, there are. I got turned out by a couple of them. I was like, oh my, what is this that I'm experiencing? What are y'all doing? I'm confused. What is this that what is this that's before me? And so I was like, I have to either get out the room or get down. And so I believe that some people can have sex and not form a soul tie because of, and I think Tatiana, you mentioned this based as how they just look at it so casually, or they look at it as their identity as a sexual being is that I'm just out here having sex with anybody. There's some women that I've had to be like, okay, look, no, don't do that. I mean, there was a friend of mine was about to get down with a friend of mine, a female friend of mine. I was like, no, I know him and I know you, and y'all can't. I don't want that to happen. But they was about to do. Never mind. it was going to be at a party in a bathroom, and I was like, I would not allow it to happen. So again, there's some hoes out in these streets, and so can you have sex without forming a soul tie as a woman? I know some women that have no soul ties to their sexual partners because they identify themselves as, a woman of the streets, we'll say. So, but again, I like that. I lean on the side of what Tatiana and Tara was saying because I think that is the standard. But then again, I've learned a long time ago that I cannot put my standard for what your sexual habits are. And these were Christian people now. I'm talking about saints of God, men and women of God. I cannot put my standards of what your relationship with God is on you. So I'll say that.
Nah, that's real. I appreciate you saying that.
Can I
And
add to that?
oh yeah, go for it, Tara.
About,
Tatiana, chime. She want to chime in too. All right, ladies, y'all got the floor.
because just for the promiscuous women out here, because I really want to like go deeper into why they chose that route. Because sometimes in childhood, they have been touched. They
Yes.
have been touched, they have been molested, they have been raped. So now they are numb. So now they have switched this mentality in their mind to not care, to
Yes.
not care about the temple that they reside in. So now they are operating in this playing field as a savage because someone took their innocence away. They took their purity away. So now they like, since I already been snatched, I might as well manipulate this in my favor at that point. So I feel like the women that are using sex and abusing sex are filling a void at the end of the day. It's very deeper because having this psychology thinking that sex is building some type of closeness, or a man is going to love you, or if you have somebody's baby they're going to love you, is not real. That's the true love is within. So once we unlock that, then I think the switch will shift.
Yeah, you
To that
make an excellent point. No, go ahead, Heath.
to that point, um, the, the the biblical DNA of a woman because of the curse is that she has a desire to be has a desire for her husband. That's a desire, but it's a learned or an experientially learned behavior for that to be suppressed so much so that the folly of the world's ways trump that desire. And it's only after you break a hold of that or break free from that bondage, if you will, then does that spirit rise again in you to have to be desired of one man and one wife.
Yeah, yeah, and this is the thing that I would just add to the things that you guys are saying. I feel like, where was it? I think it was JD that commented. Um, some people may not acknowledge it, right? And to Krista's point, some people are desensitizing themselves to it. To your point as well, Tara, being numb to something doesn't mean that it's not occurring, right? Just like surgery. Just because you're asleep, you're knocked out during the process, doesn't mean that somebody didn't literally take a scalpel, cut you open. You bled. Your body bled. Like let's be real. It's for a purpose of healing, but you can't act like, oh man, just because you went to sleep, you didn't feel no pain while it was happening, that nothing happened. No, it's the same thing. Like you mentioned when it with sex, even if you have desensitized yourself to the impact, even if you choose not to acknowledge the soul ties or the connections that are being formed, it's occurring just based on the nature of the behavior that you're involving yourself in. At least that's my take on it. Tatiana, what's your thoughts?
Now I was just chiming up because I was agreeing with JD Cottle as well about, sometimes we just don't acknowledge it. To Tara's point, like it can go both ways too. Men can also experience trauma to the point that they have a void that they're trying to fill through sex, or they use sex as a drug and they try to numb the pain through the sexual behavior or promiscuity, and that causes so much damage to other people because not everybody's on the same page as you. So if you're running around and having a laissez-faire attitude about sex, but the people you are dealing with don't, that's when you're going to have a whole bunch of confusion and soul ties and connections with people that you maybe weren't trying to be with long term.
Nah, that's good. That's good. Before we go to our next question, there were a number of different comments that came in. Let me see. Hold on, real quick. Let me start with my man Tori. So He said, I wasn't so on soul ties, but had a time where a female that he dealt with liked a food that he hated. And after being quote unquote involved with her consistently, he developed a liking to that food. Also, his palate changed. So I think that was back earlier when we were talking about Tara, you were mentioning just being around somebody and the impacts that it could have and start to change your behavior and your makeup a little bit. So that was a really good example of that. So then we had one come in from Black Belt. Well, no, I think he had another one that came before that. This one. So he was talking about Tara. He was saying, Tara made an interesting point. How do men tell that a woman is invested if she's not giving her full heart into it? So yeah, why don't you address that one for him, Tara? He wanted to know a little bit more about that.
I think women right now, we are doing a little bit too much. Okay, we doing wifey duties to a boyfriend. So sis needs to tie it down, pull it back, because honestly, we're not supposed to be giving so much of ourselves so freely to someone who is maybe just supposed to be a friend. Just like I feel like if you can see by a woman's character how she treats others and how she treats herself. Like we should not focus on what people do for us. We should see how what people do for themselves. So if they treat themselves as such a high regard, if they honor themselves, if they respect themselves, if they love themselves, they're confident with themselves, of course that's going to be a ripple effect of how they're going to treat their outer reality. I feel like this society has such a way with relationships. It's very transactional. It's like, what can you do for me? If you're not doing nothing for me, I'm not gonna like you for real no more. I'm not gonna love you. When it's that's not unconditional love. Well, truly, if we want to embody unconditional love, we first have to give it to ourselves. That's why it says, I love you. So first, I have to love myself in order to really love you. So it's levels to this. So we should watch how people treat themselves, and then that is the example how they're gonna treat you overall.
Nah, that's good. That's good right there. Let's see. We had another one that came in. Oh, Tiffany was saying, say that Tatiana, women are receivers that multiply what is seeded into them. Yeah. And to your point, Tatiana, when you were talking about Dr. Monroe, definitely reminded me of, he would use the term women are incubators. You give them something and, they multiply it, they make it even more than it originally was. So yeah, that's a really great point. Tori had another one that came in. He said, for a man, if they looked at it as sowing seed in a good or bad ground, they may think twice, especially if they already know that the ground they are sowing into isn't good to begin with. And yeah, I think that may have come off of the tail where Heath was opening up about some women being, out there in them streets, if we could put it like that. You would definitely want to think twice about who you sowing your seed into, especially if they behaving in that manner. Let's see. Let's see. I think we had one more that came in from Black Belt. He says, I'll say that he's confident men develop a tie with women after sex, but it is a photographic experience as opposed to a deep emotional thing unless future actions come about. That's interesting. I think that every situation could be different. That may apply in some regards. Oh man, you didn't got Black Belt riled up. I turned back over here to live like Terry, like he got questions about these wifely duties. Yo, Black Belt, let's see. We'll dive into one of them. One of them, Black Belt. One of them. So, Tara, coming back over you, like, what are the wife duties and what are husband duties? Can you please break both of these down, please? So we're gonna take a segue just for a moment, then we're gonna get right back on track.
So, wifey duties, what women are doing is putting someone temporary above herself. She is self-sacrificing herself above it all, and she's not getting a true commitment, no type of plan, no type of nothing. Honestly, wifey duties is getting her body. Like, who are you? Why are you? She should only be giving her body to who is destined to be long term longevity on this journey. Everybody does not deserve her body. So that's the biggest thing for me. If you busting it open, popping it open to these boyfriends, sus, you gotta think twice, because that's a boy, not a man, if he wants to even label himself as a boy friend.
Okay, yo. So I'm gonna come up to Tatiana as a woman. Anything you want to add to Black Belt's point, so he can hear the full, woman's perspective tonight on wifely duties.
Yeah, I mean, in general, like if we want to make it a general thing, because marriage, everybody's marriage is different depending on the individuals in it. So it could be very, subjective to that person. But objectively, like we've been brought up that in different ways, different cultures, that husbands are to protect their families, their wives, profess their love for them, and provide. So there's that provider aspect too for the husbands, from what I've heard. I definitely want to hear Heath's perspective because he's actually married on this panel, because I definitely want to hear his confirmation on stuff. And for the women, for the wives rather, it's like respect a certain level of loyalty that you're not going to get as a friend, as a boyfriend, etc. And legacy. Ideally, you want to create legacy through children or through purpose, something that you can leave behind for the world after you're gone with that partner, and that wife would be your helpmate, your partner in making that happen. So that's what I think it is.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So Heath, coming down to you as a married man, man. What are some husband duties, just from your own experience, and what are some duties that your wife didn't perform until you guys were married? If you're free to disclose those things.
Sure. So am I answering as a husband or as a relationship?
I want to hear you answer it as a husband. Yo,
Okay,
like who better to
so
address it?
yes. So my wife and I did not have sex before we got married. That was her doing, not mine. That was her fault, not mine. We both are Christians, but I was like, once we decided to get engaged, then it's going to be you, right? So we might as well go ahead and do the thing. And she was like, no, because she made a statement one time that she said, the person I know, because she had some very bad relationships before me. And she said, the person I know that I'm going to marry is the person that I don't have sex with. So that made me feel like if I then pursue this, then I'm not the person that she's going to marry. And so I was like, I can't do it now. And so that did not happen until after we got married. But to answer the question about husbandry duties, so I look at it. Okay, I'm not trying to answer as a husband. I'll speak as a husband. As a husband, my responsibility was to behave as if she is my wife and treat her as if we're already married. For two reasons. One, because I want to demonstrate to her what it is I'm proposing. Because as a husband, I'm proposing a certain lifestyle to her. I'm proposing with my package that I presented myself to her, I'm proposing that with me and with us, we will do these things together. As a leader, as the person who is the head of the household, this is what I'm presenting to you as a proposal, and you say yes or no. So she said yes, I needed to manifest that to her once she agreed. That's one. And for the second thing, it gave me practice being a husband before I actually was a husband. So I can learn what to do and what not to do on the other side of the, coming up the aisle, on the other side of the broom. So I thought that it was very important for me to go all in, even though she was very reluctant, because like I said, she had past relationships where it didn't turn out the way she wanted. So she was very skeptical on my fulfillment of what I said I was going to do, which presented a whole bunch of different challenges. But for the most part, I was consistent with who I presented myself to be. And over time, and she told me this after we got married, it took her 3 years after marriage to believe the person I was before we got married. And that took a lot of consistency on me. So husbandry duties is to demonstrate the life that you say that you're going to present to her. And so what I would advise women who are looking at a man who are considering marrying that person is believe who they present themselves to be, because that's who they actually are. They are not the person that you want them to be. They are not the person that they are sometimes, that you see the glimmer of hope. If you would just be this person more often, then we would be good. And then but then they show you this bad side that they do regularly, that you wish, well, whenever you don't do that, then we're good. That bad side is a part of the whole picture, and you're gonna get all that smoke and that grace when you get married. And so you just have to know that you're going to be going into that and manage accordingly.
All right, yo, I appreciate you for sharing that. All right, we're gonna get back on track. My man Tori had left a comment here. He says, "If you look at a tie, it's like tying a shoe. There's a string and then a knot. So there are a lot of people with a lot of knots and not a lot of string. Synonym for a tie is a bind or a link." Okay, okay. And let's see. Tiffany says, "I like that perspective, Heath. Thank you for sharing." All right, all right. Okay, let's see. So, Grandma Joe says, "Hopefully, I don't get booted off. My sincere heart is to share that it is possible to not be trying out someone who does not have the qualities for marriage. Yes, not going to change. Yo, I mean, everybody has their different perspectives on it, and that's one of the reasons why I like to have these conversations where we can come together, learn, and grow from one another. So yeah, so here's my next question for you guys. I wanted to talk about the topic of the night. What are these signs that a woman is actually beginning to form a soul tie with a man? So Tara, what's your take? What would you say are some of those signs?
Oh, I feel like one of the signs is being so obsessive and possessive and truly like addicted, like acting like you can't breathe without someone in your bed. Like, so stand up. Like, because like we have to understand this type of connection. Like, pouring your whole identity in someone because sex has you in this oneness. Now you're confused and having your identity wrapped up. Now thinking your life is supposed to be revolved around this certain person. Like, you can't have no friends, you can't talk to your family. This is a side of having a soul tie, when you are isolating yourself, choosing this. Sometimes it's not even by force, it's you just automatically just choosing that you can't just be an individual. But we all came here to be an individual. But a soul tie will have you so wrapped up into someone, because when you lay down, you become one. So now you just meshing your whole entire existence with another person. That's a sign right there.
Okay, okay, that's a good way to start it off, man. Heath, what's your take? What's a sign that a woman is forming a soul tie with a guy?
A tangible sign is time. When you are giving time to this person, and they are um, lucid with theirs. They can take you, they can leave you. They'll make time for you. They won't make time for you. They'll do things that consider you sometimes, but then there's times that they just completely forget about you. And but you are always available to them. You will always avail your opportunities to them, your heart, your thinking, your thoughts on these things, your money. When you spend that time with them, you're more, I guess it's more, you're more available than they are to you. That is the beginning of a soul tie. That is the beginning, and that may be stipulated by several things, like sort of what Tara was saying. It could be about sex. It could be about your identity. It could be about any of those things. But a tangible annotation of a soul tie is being formed. The incubator stage is when you start availing yourself, your time, your money, your resources, your communication. Mm, your communication, because you can share a lot, you can text a lot, you can give anything, but they are tight fisted on what it is that they're willing to share. They're like, "Oh, I've been hurt before," or she's like, "Share with me this," or "What do you think?" And then like, "I don't really want to talk about it. I don't know how to put words to that." That's when it's about to get messy on your side, ma'am.
Okay, okay. That's a good way to start us off as well. Coming up to you, Tatiana, what would you say is a sign that a woman is beginning to form a soul tie with a man?
One sign for the ladies of the faith, if you're basically readjusting your priorities in life for that person, like you take Jesus off the throne of your heart and put that man there, that's idolatry, and that's like you're changing up basically your whole way of living based off of your connection with this person. Also, assigning your life to their life vision prematurely, especially if you're not married. So I think in this question, we're talking about unhealthy soul ties or ungodly soul ties, because soul ties can are a positive thing in healthy relationships. Um, but when it comes to like you you're not married to this person, you don't have a commitment with this person. There's like, oh, you're gonna just go with what they're doing with their life because you all have this connection, when that may not be what you're called to do or what you want to do. But because you have this tie, this has really impacted your influence, your mind, your will, your emotions. You're like, I'm just gonna, ride till I die. A lot of women have chosen to be ride or dies because of soul ties. And unfortunately, it changed the trajectory of their lives. There's probably women in prison right now who went the wrong way because they got caught up, emotionally because of some good sex. So be careful out here.
Yo, that's real. That's real. And shout out to my girl Cynthia. We appreciate you for joining us tonight. She was asking a question, but I think you had answered it for her. She was saying, I'm not sure if somebody had already asked this, but can you have a soul tie with someone you're married to, or is it only called a soul tie when you're unmarried? I think everybody here is in agreement that it goes both ways, right? Unmarried and married. Yes. Okay. Okay. So yeah, that there you go, Cynthia. There's an answer to that. Oh, Danielle is in the building. We appreciate you, Danielle, for stopping by and joining us. She says anybody that takes her away from God is definitely a sign. Yes, Tatiana. Yes, that's real. That's real. All right. All right. So coming back over to you, Tara, are there any additional signs that you would add that you think we need to share with the people out there that's watching tonight?
Tati, you said it so perfectly. Like when we idolize people, like really putting them on a throne, like putting them on a pedestal, when we are all human, we are all flawed, and we are all going to make mistakes. But then worshiping someone is truly a red flag. And then you out here being a ride or die, and we out here dying, sus. Like being a ride or die, dying ended up in a ditch. So like we really can't just like hand our life over so freely because of this soul tie. We really end up losing our mind. We're so smart. That's another way. Like we're really intelligent, but we lack common sense sometimes. Like we just be blind for love. Like we just be ignoring all the red flags. It be right in front of us, but we like it just feels good. We just so infatuated off of emotions, but we're not in reality. So I think we get so caught up in the fantasy a lot of the time, especially women, like, oh, what this can be, what this could be, because of Cinderella. Disney has programmed us to really search for a Prince Charming, like search for something outside of us. So we gotta really unlock and not live in a fantasy no more and live in reality.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And my man Tori says Tatiana is right. A lot of women are in prison for acting like Bonnie and Clyde instead of deciding to run and hide or even electric slide out of the way. Yeah, that's real. Yo, CEO is a character. So coming over to you, Heath, man. Any additional signs that you like to share?
Yeah, and yeah, this is a serious one. A poor self identity um, that you have of your own self, because that is when it allows some snake oil men to come in there and feed you the encouragement and motivation that you need, and men who are gifted at um, mistreating women can see it coming a mile away. They can see a woman with low self esteem or a poor evaluation of herself, and they know how to boost the woman up in order to make her basically do anything that he says that he wants her to do. And that's a sign, a warning sign. So if you have a poor evaluation of yourself, and the Bible talks about don't think of yourself more highly than you ought. But the assumption in that verse is that there is a level that you should think of yourself, that you should have some esteem that you've given yourself based upon who you are in God, who you are in Christ, who God is to you, that you should value yourself, that there should be some things that you should not fall for or stoop below. And so I think it's a warning sign if you have a poor evaluation of yourself, or a low evaluation of yourself. I won't say poor, a low evaluation of yourself, because that sets the groundwork for a man to come in and then play on your mind and be able to uh, um, trick you and bamboozle you into doing untoward things toward yourself and other people and to God.
All right, yo. Yeah, something you want to add, Tara?
I wonder, like, just off of the psychology, why do they do that? Like, why are they preying on women in that such degree?
Um, you said it. We are all flawed people. There are people out here who are vipers, and they see an opportunity, and they just pounce on it and take advantage of it. I think the Bible talks about um, there are some men that I can't remember if it's men or there's some people that prey on. I think weak-willed women. The Bible says. It's not my words. It's what the Bible says. Weak-willed women, um, and they are able to cajole them into doing certain things. So, why God, you have to ask God why they do that. That's just a sinful nature. I mean, just like some women prey on men who they see coming. It's just a nature of humankind. We're all fallen beings, so that's just one of the things that men do.
All right. Tatiana, look like you wanted to add something. Is that right?
Yeah, I just had one more point. Y'all had some great points.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did we lose Tatiana?
She was
I think
dropping
she
bars
paused.
too.
I know, man. Yo, she was dropping bars. She dropped out for a minute.
Going
When
way
you
back,
come
way
back,
back. Remember that
Tatiana.
Ashanti?
Oh, hold on.
Okay, can you hear me
You
now?
back? Yeah, we can hear
Yeah.
you. Okay, there you go.
Y'all remember that Ashanti song, Foolish? She said in the chorus, I think, see, my days are cold without you, but I'm hurting while I'm with you. And though my heart can't take no more, I keep on running back to you. Are you serious? We were singing about a soul tie to a hot beat the whole time. I'm like 13. What? That was like 2002, it says. I was like 15. What?
At a young
We
age.
out here. See, that's what I'm
Right.
saying. I said this before in a previous episode. Like, music is powerful and it can influence us and it can cause us to repeat things into the atmosphere and draw those situations to us if we keep playing. So, in that Shanti case, it's like she's tolerating this abuse of her love, this abuse of anything else that she might be referring to, even though she knows it's wrong, she keeps coming back to him. Guys go through that too. We hear songs like that too, where the guys can't give up their ladies. Usher got a few of those songs, but it's like it's true. Like we're seeing it in art form. So it's like there's some toxicity there. You notice it, but you can't find a way to get away from that person. It's like you just keep staying with them even if friends or family tell you like are you not seeing this, or they try to have an intervention but you're like I can't let them go because like Tara said there's an addiction there's something that's hard to break. It's like beyond, it's beyond you just walking away. You have to at some point get your fill of it to get your deliverance, but it's just like whew, yeah, it's really strong and it's hard to shake.
Yo, you bringing back the old joints. Yeah, I appreciate you for sharing that. So we had a few comments coming in from the fellas about those manipulative men. So Black Belt, he says, I think we overstate men as some master manipulators and Academy Oscar Award winners actors. Many women are just drawn to unsavory characters. Women loving bad boys is a real thing. I think there's some validity to his statement for sure.
That's
Um,
for real.
yeah,
Hmm.
Tori goes on, and my man CEO says people prey on weak individuals because it covers up the area or areas that they are weak themselves that they don't want anyone to see. And that right there is a great point, man. I was watching a clip not too long ago. It was an interview with Jay-Z, and he was talking about how like in the hood, a dude will like kill or shoot somebody else for looking at them the wrong way. And he broke this thing down is the reason why they will move to that level of animosity is because they saw the guy looking at him and they assumed that he was able to look into them and see the pain and the hurt. So their way of trying to protect, oh, like you saw me, like you saw that I'm out here on the block pretending to be something that I'm not. I have to now take you out because they feel vulnerable in the sense that not the fact that you just see him standing there, but they felt like, oh man, you see me for what I truly am. And I think that that kind of lends itself to what Tori was just talking about, is some people are engaging in this predatory behavior as, don't get me wrong. I want to be clear. They are predators. They are hurting people. Their behavior is unsavory and it shouldn't be tolerated. It's not something that I'm advocating for. But I think that there is something that often is a little bit deeper at the root of it. Is they're trying to hide something. They're trying to mask something, and unfortunately, they choose hurting other people and causing pain as a way of, trying to protect themselves, which I think is it's not the right way to go about protecting yourself. But now I wanted to share that. I think we had a few more that came in. Tiffany was saying, yes, we have to be careful what we speak into and over ourselves negatively without recognizing it. Yeah, that's real. And she also says, wow, Dojo and Tori are dropping some real spiritual gems of knowledge. Yeah, most definitely tonight. So we did have another question that came in for Black Belt. Before we do it, though, I want to give Tara the floor just so that you have the opportunity to let the people know about you, your YouTube channel, the things that you're going on. So take a moment to let our audience know how they can show you some love and support.
Yes, thank you so much, Jay. You guys can connect on all social media platforms. Tara Chantel, TeraChantelle. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Can connect and also visit the website www.terrachantel.com for all the updates, everything that we end up working on, dropping on. I just appreciate this moment, appreciate this opportunity. So thank you.
Yo, it's truly an honor having you and Heath on here tonight. I already have a link to your YouTube channel. It's in the comments and the description. So wherever you guys are tuning in, definitely make sure you go and check that out. In addition to the other places that you can show her some love and support. So there was a question that came in from Black Belt that I think is a really good question to address. So he was saying, what is the priority of a man when he comes into a woman's life or in a woman's life from a religious perspective? So let's actually start with like Keith. As a spiritual or religious man, like what do you think the priority that a man has in a woman life is from that
So,
perspective?
I guess contextually, let me just clarify: is this someone who is pursuing a relationship? Is this some like what is the? I don't know what the depth of that coming into a woman's life means because that there's a difference.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So Dojo, I believe you still watching, man. Drop us a line when you give us some a little bit more context with regards to how the woman is coming into the man's life, and I will be happy for us to come back to this question. In the meantime, he did give us another one that I think kind of goes back to something that Sarah has said, which is about unconditional love. He says, "Is unconditional love for another person a good thing?" He says, I would not expect any woman to unconditionally love me if I drove our lives into the ground, even if it's unintentional. So what's your take, Tara, when it comes to like the unconditional love thing?
Yes, I feel like only God can really love us unconditionally. Because if you beat me, abuse me, I'm out of there. So we just had this illusion though, like, oh, I can unconditionally love people. Like we are selling this false narrative that unconditional love from human beings exists, and it doesn't. So I think we should be straight up and upfront and have these boundaries and have these non-negotiables. Bro, if you hit me, if you beat me, I'm not going, I have to distance myself. I have to love me more. Let's normalize loving yourself more so you won't put yourself in situations that can harm you, that can cause death to you on your own soul. So, yes, you got to love yourself more.
Nah, that's real talk. I agree with you completely. Before we go back to Black Belt's question, Tori was saying he has a question for the panel. If a person has stopped having sex with someone, which strengthens the soul tie, what's the difference in still being connected and feeling sorry for someone? Let's come up to Tatiana. What's your take on this question from Tori?
I was still trying to understand the question. Okay. Could you read it for me one more time?
Yeah, so it says if a person stop having sex with someone, which strengthens the soul tie, what's the difference in still being connected and feeling sorry for the person? I guess he's saying, yeah.
I might need some
Uh,
clarity on that one. because I
Yeah,
don't.
Tori, provide us a little bit more context, man. Context. Then we'll come back to it as well. So Heath, is this enough context for Black Belt's question? He says, I assume we were only referring to relationships. So, going back to his original question about the priority of a man in a relationship with a woman, from a religious perspective, like what priority does that man take in her life?
Um, so that's a very good question because there is a religious biblical answer, and then there is a religious answer. And there's a difference because the Bible has a standard of how relationships should be, but religion has a colloquial standard by the way the church says that a relationship should go. So what I mean is that the Bible gives doesn't really give a lot of examples of how people come together. If you look at the Bible, the examples of way people came together in marriage were you gonna marry this man because my dad said so. You're gonna marry this man because it's a good trade off. That's the biblical definition. That's the biblical way of marriage. Even in the New Testament, there are some people who fell in love. But even we don't see how Joseph and Mary like fell in love. We just know that they were engaged to be married. So we don't have that historical biblical context for a lot of examples. I'll say my favorite couple in the Bible, Ananias, not Ananias and Sapphira, Priscilla and Aquila, in Acts and Ephesians. My favorite couple. They're my favorite couple because it shows how they work together, but it doesn't give any history about how they came together. And so when it comes to a man approaching a woman and what his intention should be, we typically fall back to on what our church has taught us. A man should not be approaching a woman unless he's intending on marrying her. A man should only be dating a woman. Sometimes dating doesn't exist, but then there's sometimes that dating does exist. So the spectrum is wide ranging. So here's my take on it. If you have an intention toward a woman, you have to know who you want. You have to know who you want to be in her life, and that is a question that some men don't ask themselves. You look at a woman and say, "Oh, I know who I want her to be in my life," but then the other side of that is who are you going to be to her in y'all's relationship, and that then dictates why you are approaching her. Do you want to be her husband? Okay, but what kind of husband do you want to be to her? What are you providing to her? What are you bringing of yourself to her? And how do you want that to appear to her? Not this is what I'm good at, this is how I approach you, and you should receive it the way I'm giving it. Because sometimes in communication, our message is misconstrued or misunderstood because of the way that we are communicating it. When you can extrapolate that to a relationship, sometimes our love is not received because of the way that we are communicating it. We all know about love languages, and if you are miscommunicating your love in a language that they do not speak, then it's not received, and therefore you feel that the love you're giving as a man is not being received. But we have to understand as men, okay, what am I giving and how are we perceiving it? And so that to me should dictate and determine how you approach a woman. Is who do you want her to be in your life, and how do you want to show up as that person in her life, and then everything else should cascade down from there, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate you for sharing that, Heath. Now we want to come over to the ladies, right? So let's start with you, Tara. In relationship with a man, where do you prioritize him?
So, what is his priority in a woman's life? That
Yeah,
is
so in Tara's life, like a man is in relationship with Tara, like where are you prioritizing him?
so I personally believe in wholeness. So, step to me how approaching myself. So, I'm coming whole. I'm coming secure. I'm coming full. I'm overflowing with love. So please match my drip. All you got to do is be my reflection. That's all you got to do is be my reflection. Because I see, when I look at me, I see God. So when I want to look at you, I want to see God too. Embody God.
Okay, okay.
Let me ask this
That's
question
fair.
of you, Tara, if I can.
Yeah.
What if your perspective of God is different from his perspective of God?
Yes, I feel like we all have our own relationship with God. So I personally encourage you to have a stronger bond with God. Please don't put nobody ahead of God. God is first. So I want your intimate relationship with God to look different as how my intimate relationship with God is going to look different. And that's up to you. But I have to see that you are putting God before anybody, anything, or anyone. So God is first. It don't matter how you call God, whatever you call God, but as long as God is first, hey, that's amazing.
I asked that question because that's what happened with me and my wife. She grew up Kojic, Church of God in Christ, grew up in church her whole entire life. Was me. Her family was the musicians of the church, so she was never not in church. I didn't start going to church until I was 19. We met when I was 25, and so um, we so my experience with church was completely different than hers, and she thought I wasn't saved because of her Kojic background. Said that the things that I'm doing means that I'm not saved, and I was like, I absolutely am saved. The God gives grace, and I'm just operating in that grace right now. But over the years, she saw me mature more. But that was a point of conflict in our marriage, in our relationship. Even before we got married, and even after we got married, that what her Church of God in Christ Kojic lifestyle looked like did not validate my Baptist lifestyle, and that was a point of conflict that we had to work through.
Yeah, because
Right.
it's just so different. Like, even if we're speaking on religiously, like everybody has their own religious background, but it's like we all still praising the one God. Like we know it's just a higher calling, a higher purpose to all of this life. So it's gonna look different for all of us because we all have a different journey here. Like we all came here to learn something different and to be different and to truly just come back to our own existence. So, and that's all we are all here to do in relationships. I just want to encourage whoever is in alignment with me to reach God. Like, please don't view me as anyone higher. I don't want to be a distraction to the relationship that you have with God.
Oh yeah, yo, I appreciate you for sharing that. So really quickly, want to give some shout outs to some people who joined us. So shout out to Sheree. We appreciate you for joining us tonight during tonight's show. And Ebony just stopped by. So appreciate you for joining us as well, Ebony. So I do want to quickly go back to Black Bell's question. To ask you this question. Like I get what you were saying, Sarah, and I'm totally in alignment with two people coming together and being whole. But from the main point of his question being like the priority, like
Mhm.
where does the man, who is whole, y'all reflected, like all of that stuff, he crossed all of it, he checked all of those boxes, right? Y'all in relationship. How do you prioritize him in that relationship? Like what things come before him? What things do you place him above? Like to that extent.
So, like, say, I'm confused with that question.
So I mean, everything in life is prioritized, right? I give you an example. How some people will say that the relationship that you have with your partner, the relationship you have with your parents, and the relationship you have with your child, like you can't prioritize all of them equally. Somebody has to come before the other one. Somebody has to be, beneath the other one. So that's what I mean in a sense of prioritizing. Like there are different things that are important to you in your life, and there are going to be some things that I would assume are going to come before that man, and there are some things that you will prioritize that man over those things. So I think that is the heart of the question that Black Belt was asking. If I'm wrong, definitely let me know, Black Belt. But I just wanted to make sure that he kind of got that part of the question answered, if that makes sense.
So, like, how would a woman prioritize?
Right, because I think to
Correct.
tie it all back to what we're talking about, right? How we've been talking about soul ties, we've seen that some women, even some men, it's been alluded to, if the soul tie is strong enough, they're prioritizing this person to an extent that they don't need to be prioritized too, right? To your point earlier, Tara, they're prioritizing a man over themselves. Like I think we all on the panel can say that that's not accurate. That's not right. You should put yourself first and not be placing a man at a higher priority than yourself, right? So that is what we're kind of alluding to with regards to the priority piece. If that does that make sense?
Yes. See, I believe in balance. So like
Okay.
I'm a very balanced individual with who I am. So I'm able to prioritize my family, my friends, school, my hobbies, work effortlessly. Like effortlessly. I can treat everybody fair, everybody kind, everybody with love. So if you come in to me with love, like you have a desire to actually want to create something, because I don't personally, I'm not going to prioritize anything that doesn't align with my purpose. So when you meet somebody who knows their purpose, please just add value to that. Please just add value. And how to add value into my life is to create with me, is to truly encourage, speak highly, but I don't need much. Like I don't need a lot or ask for a lot, because how I said, present it, I'm coming whole. So all you got to do is exist for real and be the best version of yourself and make sure you in alignment with your purpose. And we going to truly, if we want to make time for each other, then time will be presented. But first, you got to make sure your priorities is straight for yourself. I'm always going back to making sure you are on your assignment, because I know my assignment and we're going to continue to move up the ladder together. Trust me, if we going to, I know I'm going to the top. Meet me there.
All right, all right. I appreciate you for answering that. I thank you for that, Tara. What's your take, Tatiana? You know, when you're in a relationship with a man, where do you prioritize him?
If it's not marriage relationship, I think the single person should prioritize themselves.
Oh, did we lose Tatiana again? Oh, that's weird. That's twice tonight. That ain't never happened before. That's weird. Okay, we'll give it a second. See if she come back.
That's part of our mission. Okay, can you see me now?
Yeah, can you run that back?
Yeah, so I'm Bliss for Singles. Our mission is to encourage singles to make Jesus their priority in your life. And so walk that out and live your best single life, honey, or brother. Do what you got to do. It's for women and men, but for the most part, right? And so, like, if you're in a dating relationship, I would say that you're the person that you're dating or in a relationship is on the same level as your friends, probably slightly above because you're spending more time with them. If we want to make it a ladder of priorities, right? In marriage, it's God, your spouse, your children, and then everybody else. But overall, like from a singles perspective, it should be God, you and your relationship with yourself, because you're still getting to know yourself, and then everybody else. I mean, I think there's a point where spouses do need to consider themselves in their marriage too, but the Bible talks about God, spouse, kids, and everybody else as well.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. And that was actually what David was saying. Appreciate you for joining us as well. So really quick, there's a question, Tiffany. I saw your question. We'll come back to it, but for a moment, I want to take us back to the soul ties topic, and I want to ask this question: do you guys believe soul ties impact men and women the same or differently? Heath, what's your take on this one?
I think it's differently. I think when I think of a soul tie that a man has, um, it's there's a lot. I was reading an article. No, I was in the podcast, and one of the points was that when a man is hurt, he is more emotionally scarred than a woman is, and it's harder for him to get over that. I think that was the point of it. Emotionally scarred may not be the right word, but it was harder for him to get over it because he's so hurt, and then that's when he just goes scorched earth on the world and just treats women of all ilks um, rudely, mean, and so forth. And so I think sometimes if a man is hurt in a soul tie, he can lash out at others in revenge of the hurt as a manifestation, as a toxic manifestation of pain. And so women, however, in my experience, I'm not going to speak for women, but in my experience of talking to women in understanding, my wife and others, they can bounce back from the pain of soul ties much more lucidly. And so I think that the impact of a soul tie before all the pain happens is that there's a stronger emotional connection. I think that the strength of the emotional connection is the same, but the impact on that person is different. There's different outcomes of that.
That makes sense. Tara, what's your take? Same or different, the impact?
Yeah, it's probably definitely different as well. Like I agree with my brother. And but I see as well, like you can either take this pain and make it purposeful, or you can take this pain and be hurtful. It's like your choice. We gonna all get our heart broken because that's just going to just develop your character overall, and that's gonna lead you to take accountability over your life instead of playing the victim role. Like, oh, he did this to me or she did this to me, but we all have free will and we choose to give our power away. And one of the ways we give our power away is opening our legs to just anyone, especially if they're temporary overall, because now that is opening many doors and many accesses to end up losing pieces of yourself and overall losing yourself. So I think we have to move with caution and move with awareness because it can cause damage and it can change the whole trajectory of your life, especially if you just add a kid in the mix and this person was just supposed to be somebody you passing through. So now you got a deeper soul tie with the kid involved. No wonder why these kids are walking around here unconsciously, not knowing who they are because they were brought up into this world in confusion. This is what we lead into here.
Yeah.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Really quickly before I come to you, Tatiana, comment came in from CEO Tori says, Heath is spot on. If a man is hurt in a soul tie, he will do all he can not to show that level of vulnerability again because we aren't shown or taught how to heal or to express that we are hurt. Yeah, that's a really good point. Really good point. Coming up to you, Tatiana, do you feel like the impact is the same or different when it comes to men and women?
I agree with Heath on this one, so I just echo what he stated about it. Perhaps even if there's a more emotionally vulnerable party in the relationship, whoever is more emotionally open to the relationship, maybe they'd probably be the one who sees the consequences or the effects of the soul tie more so than the other person. So it could be either gender in that situation.
All right, all right. So let's talk a little bit about personal experiences, right? So, Tara, what's been your personal experiences when it comes to soul ties? If you have experienced them, what did it look like when it came to either breaking them or healing from them?
Yes. So I have been on my celibacy journey for 6 years now because I saw the impact that sex had on me, and it was a soul tie. I was honestly stigmatized, okay, doing some outlandish, crazy things. So I can relate to being crazy in love, to being drunk in love, to really losing ourselves, putting somebody on a pedestal, being a ride or die, like really risking it all, like losing. When I say losing myself, that's what we can really do, and then end up like worshiping ourselves. So now we just thinking like we can't lead ourselves because we need a dictator above ourselves. So when I have truly taken the time to not be sexually active, to really develop a relationship with God, it has enhanced my overall outlook on life, my overall outlook on relationships, my overall outlook on partnership, my overall outlook on just this life overall. So healing that really means you have to give your womb a rest. Let her heal. Everybody don't need to be up in her, pounding her, beating her. You have to really reset. That's why we have cycles to truly be on that a cadence of relaxing, resting, and recharging. Just how we got to recharge our phone, we got to recharge. So that healing process, and I'm still on this healing process because I don't think we ever just gonna reach a point like, oh, I'm healed. Like we all fighting trauma every single day. We all fighting our inner childhood because sometimes if we're not connected to our inner child, it's just going to outlandish how we act in our adulthood. So we first must heal our inner child because that is how we're acting out in all of these relationships. We are seeking mommy and daddy in relationships, not truly a whole entire partner. That's why we have so many. That's why we want transactional. Like we want people to do things for us, what mommy did for us or what daddy didn't do for us. So we have to first like go to the center of ourselves. And I think it's going to truly have many positive outlooks on life when you really don't have sex with everybody.
Most definitely. Yeah, there definitely are benefits to being mindful about who you lay down and give yourself to for sure. And that goes both ways for both men and women. Coming over to you, Heath. What's your take when it comes to this topic of your own experiences with soul ties? The impact that it had on you. Did you break them? Were you able to heal from them?
Sure. Okay, story time. So I have, I got my heart broke when I was 17 in high school, junior in high school. And I was one of those scorched earth dudes. That's why I know it so very well. And I did not know that that's what I was doing, but I was 17. So you get your heart broken and you just like, I am going to get revenge on everybody. And so I learned how to shut off my emotions, but yet still act like I was willingly, actively engaged in relationships. And so I had a girlfriend that I felt absolutely nothing for because I would not allow myself to feel. But then, according to her, I felt I was in love with her, told her all that and everything. So that practice continued for I would say almost 10 years. So from 17 to 27, and really 25. And what I realized is through the wake of soul ties that I created, and I was able to get women to have soul ties with me because I never felt anything for them, but I would make them feel something for me intentionally. That's why I talked about I know those guys out there who were scoundrels because I was one of them. Do those dastardly deeds. I was he, and I realized that I need to get back to really who I was before I got hurt. And I was always one who wanted to be in a relationship. I loved relationships, but I was too scorned and hurt to do that. So it took me. I set a very intentional course to spiritually heal, to stop having sex, and to spiritually heal, and to relationally heal, and to grow, and really to be a servant. Because what I had done for the last previous 8 years was take, 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 and I had never really given of myself because the that which I gave was the exoskeleton of me that I presented to the world. That was the protector of the hurt little broken boy from 17 years old. And so I had to connect with that 17-year-old, like Tara was saying, you got to connect with your inner child. And then I had to realize that it's okay for me to be that person who I used to be, but the grown-up version of that. So I had to identify who that person was. And that's why I talked about you have to know who you are presenting to your woman. And I had to learn, like, okay, what skills do I have? What do I like? What are my preferences? What am I really good at? And so I had to find somebody that would appreciate the Heath that I knew I was, and what Heath brought. And so that, to speak about the question earlier, that determined how I pursued and approached women. Who are you? Will you appreciate it? Will you be sensitive with my vulnerable parts? And so my whole soul tie journey was creating them, not being in them. myself, and I know that I was a horrible person to these women that I just would just use for the purpose of getting back at my girl, the girl back when I was 17. And so once I realized that that's what I was doing, it took me 2 years to peel back that exoskeleton and then finally get ready to present myself to my my coworker, because we worked together. And I just stepped to her like, "Yo, so I'm trying to marry you." And she was like, "Huh? What?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm asking you to marry me now because you're not ready, but I am pursuing a relationship with you that leads towards marriage, and I want to get married a year from now." So I stepped to her strong, and she was like, "What? Wait, huh, we're just friends." I'm like, "I know, but I'm just letting you know." And so from that point on, I think we spoke for about a week. Not well, we had talked every day because we sat next to each other at work. But then we ended up uh, having conversations about relationships and things that we had never discussed. And then a week later, I went over to her house, and I was listening to a sermon, and the sermon was talking about airplanes and about how fathers should not give their daughters to a pilot. Let their daughters get on a plane that a pilot that is not trained, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and so he wants to make sure that his daughter knows that the man that she's going to marry, that he gives her to, is trained and has been well versed in relationship stuff. And so I told her about the story, and she said, "Do you know how to fly the plane?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just waiting for a co-pilot." And she was like, "Okay, let's do it." And so from that point on, we were engaged. We never dated.
Oh wow. Wow, yo, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your story, Heath, man. They definitely loving it in the chat, in the comments, and we definitely appreciate you for sharing it with us tonight, bro. Tatiana, what's been your experience with soul ties and healing from them, breaking free from them?
Yeah, like in my relationships past, either if it was unrequited love or if it was just, just a casual dating relationship, if there was a connection that I had with someone, there might have been some effects to it that maybe I didn't realize I had. I wasn't sexual with like most of these people or had some kind of sexual connection with them. But I went through a program called the One University, and they had a whole like section about dealing with soul ties and breaking them down, breaking up with them, renouncing them. And so one of the practical ways to do that was to write a list of every person that you had connection with, that you had a contact with, or what you think you may have a soul tie with. Write their name down and you pray over the list. You renounce it. You declare it out of what you're saying, and you renounce that tie, that connection with that person from your past. And it's a helpful process because it's like you're letting God know, and you're also reminding yourself that you don't want to be tied to that person anymore. You have authority, and a power of life and death are in the tongue, right? So we can say that we have authority to cast down those strongholds that are trying to put themselves against the will of God. So if God wants you to be married, if you want to be married, which is also a good thing, then you want to clear out the cachet of your life. So if there's some bad friendships, if there's some bad relationships, bad situationships, dating experiences, all that, you have authority to renounce those soul ties. And if it's the heaviest situation, you may need to go seek deliverance, and that may involve another person who has the capacity to do that, to walk you through that. But it's a process for everybody, right? It's a healing journey for everybody. I liked what Heath had to say about his transparency and him coming to terms with what he did. That accountability piece, man, that is so important, because sometimes we go into relationships thinking that so and so did this to us, and this is why we have a soul tie. Most times you participated in making that happen, so be accountable, okay? Your religiosity or thinking you're better now because you have Jesus does not exempt you from taking accountability for your past. And also, I love what Tara said about healing that child within, because honestly, I feel like most of us are walking around here with child trauma in some form or fashion. If it wasn't your family who did something to you, it was your little friends, that little booger nose bully who messed with you at school. It was that unrequited love that you had in middle school or high school. Unfortunately, if they feel like we all go through something like that. So take that time to heal yourself, get therapy if you need to get therapy, get delivered, do what you got to do. There's practical and spiritual ways for all of that, but I'm just want to be a reminder that you can do those things. It has helped me a lot because sometimes I get reminders of a relationship in the past. And I'm like, okay. If I see that person, I'm not going to feel away. They're not going to affect me to the point where it's like, I saw my ex and now I can't do anything for the rest of the day. Yo, that's what some soul ties do. We did not talk about that. How if you run into an ex and you had a situation with them and you know you have a soul tie with them, they affect the rest of your day. You don't even talk to that person anymore. You don't even remember their number. And yet you're out here, your whole life is affected because you ran into your ex at the farmer's market. We have to get to a point where we're not affected like that, where we're unbothered genuinely because we have come to a place of wholeness and healing where we can let that stuff go. Like that's the past. It is what it is. I can't do nothing about it. There's no hell or heaven this person can put me in. My future is bright and I have to go in that direction. I know I'm going off a little tangent right now, but I felt it. I felt it. I had that moment where I ran into an ex, but it wasn't like, it is what it is. I can't let that stuff affect me and keep me from enjoying what the future has ahead of me. Period.
All right, yo, that I appreciate the transparency and the vulnerability across the board. Definitely appreciate that. So we had a comment come in from David. Says, so on point, Tatiana, gather that list and renounce every single one. Leaving past behind is not enough to move on, but bring the list to God and having Him scrub them off your life is necessary. And then Tiffany was saying, oh no, she was thanking me for bringing you guys on. Yeah, always, man. It's a pleasure to have you guys on. JD showing some love to you, T, as well. And then David says, picking up some peaches at the farmer's market, but that peach you mess with got you twisted. True. Yeah, yo, you gotta be cautious out here in these streets, y'all. For sure. Um, yeah. I'm gonna come to that question, Black Belt. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely come to it. Just give me a second. I want to make sure that we run through these questions about soul ties, and then we'll get back to it. But first, I want to give the floor to my man Heath. Definitely let everybody know how they can get in contact with you, show you some love and support. Definitely let them know about your podcast and other things that you have going on.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so you can follow me at Heath Wiggins on Facebook. The book that I wrote is called His Leadership, Her Trust. 4 ways for a Christian man to become a man that women trust, respects, and actually wants to follow. You can find that on my website, His Leadership, Her Trust, and you can also follow me on Instagram at His Leadership, Her Trust. I also work with a company. I'm a chief operating officer for Elevation Global Media Group, where it's a Christian-based media company that focuses on being God, hearing the voice of the people and being God's voice of truth. And so you can follow us on Elevation Global Media Group on all platforms.
All right, yo, definitely make sure you guys show Heath some love and support. I'm gonna make sure that I add those links into the description after we wrap up, so that anybody who's watching the replay can definitely go ahead and check you out. But nah, man, yo, tonight has been a great discussion. Want to talk about some of these. Which one did I want to go to next? This one right here. So Tara, let's talk a minute about the negative impact of soul ties. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but when a woman forms a soul tie with a man, what type of negative impacts can that have on her?
Some negative impacts that can have on a woman is truly like her mental, her energy, like physically being drained and tired and clumsy. It's a reason why sometimes we can be forgetful, is because we can be linked up with a soul that has these traits as well. So now we're ended up being forgetful. We're clumsy. We're losing things. We're low key losing our mind and not being tapped into our spiritual intuition. Like we have been ignoring our intuition so much. Now we are getting so worldly involved into what this physical existence is becoming. So, like, if we don't listen to our intuition, if we don't tap into our divine feminine, then we are going further and further away from our truth. I feel like since I have not been sexually active, I have been tapping in more into my divinity, more into my purity, and more into my innocence, because I have learned that over watching the internet, how they try to make it seem like when a woman has sex with a man, now she is contaminated. Oh, she's a thought, she for the streets. But why is that? It's because what, a woman should be untouched, huh? Or she should be a virgin. So I feel like, of course, like we live in that society, but we have to really understand why can't women express herself sexually just how men express themselves sexually. But it's a reason, because women, we are truly like God's purest creations. So we give life with our womb. So honestly, like we have to have a different type of responsibility. I know, sis, I know you want to play the game, how they playing the game, and I know you don't want to be called these names how we are being called it, but somebody has to really like step up to the plate and hold ourselves to a higher standard.
All right, I hear that, yo. Tara, continue to drop gems. Heath, what's your take, man? What would you say are some negative ways that women are impacted by forming soul ties?
Well, it's I feel kind of behind the eight ball because I'm not a woman, and I don't want to speak for women who have what they go through and what they feel. I can say from two perspectives. One, from the women who connected had soul ties with me, but that was such a long time ago, that they played themselves. They played themselves. They put themselves out there, even though it was very clear that I was not giving what I was supposed to be giving, and they embarrassed themselves, and they felt that shame and um, embarrassment, and they did it willingly. But for the couples that I have worked with, the singles that I have worked with, what I'm finding now is it's sort of along the lines with what Tara was saying about not really wanting to embarrass yourself, or not playing yourself, or not wanting to play the games of the streets. The soul ties of old have now become a sprint in the opposite direction. They become women, black Christian single women, become so comfortable being by themselves and with themselves that men are ancillary. Take them or leave them. It's whatever. You know, it does. They're an afterthought, because what they prioritize, and both Tara and Tatiana spoke about it, is themselves. They prioritize themselves. I'm not saying that's a negative interact or I guess reaction to soul ties, but what it does, it culturally creates, and I talked about this in my book. It culturally creates a generation where women see relationships as something that is beneficial to them, and they don't necessarily see how they can be benefiting to the relationship itself. And that's what I've seen a lot of, and this may be controversial to some, even on the panel, but I've seen a lot of that as of late, where the benefactors of relationships are the women, and they look for men to present their whole self and their whole plan and their whole vision, their whole best self to them up front. When what I'm hearing from men, Christian black single men, is, I don't know you, and why am I giving you my best when I don't even know if you're worth it? And who told you that you were this queen that got you believing that you're deserving of me to give of you who I am when I don't even know you? So the dichotomy is that men are like, I'm good. I can mess with Keisha, Kara, or Terry, and you can figure out if you want to, spend time with me or not. Meanwhile, I'm out here, and because of the climate in the economy, where there's so many more available single qualified women versus available single qualified men, men have the advantage of being bequeathed the love and adoration from women on a larger scale than the women have than being bequeathed the same from men. So it creates a economy of scales that favor the men than they do the women. So that is the negative side of this. Come on, Tara.
All right.
I know you got some thoughts, Tara.
I do. No, you were stating some facts. You were stating some facts about that. But like your last part is because we're living in a patriarchy. Like it is designed for men to lead women. Like we are not equipped to lead ourselves. You feel me? Like we're not like we like women don't give birth to young little boys and like a mother don't raise her son. So you feel me? So it's a contradiction to me. So I just feel like as we should all like invest into ourselves. How you said, like, why should I give you all of this when you're not showing me that you even a queen? We should all like treat ourselves like royalty. Like I really truly don't think nothing is wrong with being single. Like when you are choosing to truly be single, everybody's mission is not to be married. And I think we should come to this realization and this reality that everybody is not going to get married, and that's not everybody's design, but they have sold us to women this reality that we should desire that we should seek out. Like why is it that they give little girls baby dolls to play with, babies playing with babies? So we already accustomed to being self-sacrificing, to really put ourselves on the back end. I get so many hate mails all the time talking about I'm a die alone. Since when do we go out in pairs? We don't go out in pairs. We don't. So we all going to transition at our own separate time. So I think it's okay to truly like have our own different missions, but I really think we should like have this realistic conversation because women are desiring marriage and really are like bowing down and overall like losing herself and not realizing like sis, maybe that pathway God did not design that for you and you forcing it. Now you harming yourself overall and now you have no love for self. So we should all love ourselves, and then I think the world can get back into balance, a divine masculine and divine feminine. But we so out of order because we all chasing romance.
All right. Yeah. So, really quickly, my man Tori said he just bought your book, Heath. Definitely looking forward to reading it. So definitely appreciate that. And before we get to our next question, coming up to you, Tatiana, what would you say are some of the negative impacts on women when it comes to them forming soul ties with men? Oh, she got froze. I think she froze up like right when she's about to answer. All right. Well, hopefully you'll come back in the meantime. Tori had this
Yeah,
comment for
love you
you,
guys.
Tori.
Thank
He
you for
said, I
joining
like
us.
that, Tori. Since when do we go out in pairs? Even twins are born at separate times. So yeah, there you go. There you go. That's a good point.
Mhm.
Good point. All right, Tatiana, you back?
Yes.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah, I was just saying I like the dynamic between our panelists. Thank you guys so much again for joining us. I would just say real quick that um, oftentimes in a relationship, you want to be enhanced in your relationship. You don't want to necessarily come out of that thing worse than you were going in. So unfortunately, negative soul ties, ungodly soul ties, whatever, unhealthy soul ties, whatever you want to call it, that could affect a woman in a way where it diminishes her. Not not takes away her value, but it might take away her perception of her value. I remember hearing about the definition of abuse is like when someone just misuses the purpose of something. And so in a relationship, someone could be mishandled. A woman or a man could be misused, and then that just adjusts their whole perspective on life, how they see themselves most importantly. Because if you don't see yourself the way God sees you, the way that you were created to live out your life and your purpose, everything else, you're not going to be any good in any future relationship. So I think that's a very detrimental part with negative soul ties.
Right, yo, you've been reading Dr. Miles Monroe. I can hear some of those sentiments that he be sharing for sure. Yes, indeed. Yo, so last question of the night. We do got one from Black Belt. I'm gonna say that one to the end because it is off topic, but this is our last question with relation to soul ties for tonight. Want to know what can women do to begin healing from the unhealthy soul ties that they have? So, Tara, what would be your recommendation for healing for the ladies out there?
Sus, you're gonna have to close your legs. You're gonna have to close them. Keep them closed. Keep them off limits. This is how you take your power back, baby. Now you putting the ball in your court because at the end of the day, we've been dishing out the scriptures because he who finds a wife finds a good thing. Sus, you the good thing, baby. You the good thing. So we have to understand, like, men, you bow down to when you see someone at such a high regard. You see her as pure. You see her as angelic because that's who you want to be with. You're choosing her and she's honestly choosing you as well because she knows the influence she's going to have over you and over your life. So women, you have to understand your power. You have to understand what you bring to any enhancement to anybody's life. But first, you got to know what good you do for your own life so you can honor yourself, honor your body, protect your temple because it holds your soul, your spirit. Because these bodies that we are using on this journey is just getting us to our next evolution on this playing field in this existence. So don't take this lightly and don't just misuse your body. So I think we have to really first forgive ourselves for any other type of coexistence that we created and take accountability for that and learn from it and grow from it and now just develop into your highest self overall. Listen to your intuition because it will never steer you wrong.
Look at Tara. Just keep bringing the flames. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. Keep that fire flowing. Heath, man, what's your take? What would you suggest to the ladies out there who want to heal from unhealthy soul ties?
First of all, that's not fair. I'm supposed to come after that. She was out here Maya Angeloing.
Right, right, right,
Like, and come on.
right.
And, I can't come after that.
Yo, man, yo, she was definitely vibing for
I'm all
sure.
practical and strategic. She got the flow. Okay, everybody, this is my name is Heath Wiggins. I'm not Tara, so I can't bring it like Tara. So I'm just gonna give it to you the way Heath does. You need to get with a bunch of not a bunch, some other ladies who are also trying to walk the same journey that you do. One of the things that I did in 2018 for the pandemic, I created this web series called Millennial Dating Chronicles, where I was taking people who have stories of their dating life, and they are trying to share their stories just to help other people. It wasn't me giving advice; it was just them sharing their stories. And what stories do is it allows the people to know that they're not alone. They're not the only ones dealing with the things that everyone else is struggling with. And so get yourself some friends, maybe some people that you don't know, and who are trying to who have similar goals, similar life goals, similar relationship goals. Not that your goals are to be in a relationship, but whatever your goal is of a relationship, get some people that have similar goals, and then just kick it with them. Talk about the struggle, talk about your life, talk about the things that you've dealt with, and it brings community to a very needed and sensitive area, and it allows you to have verb, subject, and predicate put to these feelings that you can express outwardly in a safe space. And from there, you can grow and define what it is you want that next relationship or that future relationship to be. And it's in that kind of community where you get the healing and where you get the community and your reality. Ooh, this is good. And your perception of what a relationship is bounced off other people. So people can be like, girl, you crazy. That's not it. Why do you think you got to do that? You don't got to do that. And have somebody in that group that's older, that's been through some stuff, so you can get some wisdom and not just everybody's similar experiences.
All right,
If I could
yo.
only have said that like Tara, then I probably would have gone over better.
I mean, yo, you still brought it, man. Yo, you may
That
not
was
have been rhyming, but yo, you was definitely bringing the bars though, and we appreciate that heat. I already knew you was gonna bring the heat. I said that from the jump, man. Both of y'all done brought the heat. Tara, she was, spitting some bars and some flows
Yeah.
throughout, but that's her vibe. I told y'all she be vibing, y'all.
I can't wait to hear the playback. Honestly,
Yo,
this could have been.
yes, it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be dope. So, Tatiana, what about you? What would you say are some ways that the ladies can heal from unhealthy soul ties?
Yeah, I think one of my godmother, one of my spiritual like influencers in my life, she always would remind us about getting to the root of the issue. Sometimes these soul ties, these broken relationships and the damage from them can still be a surface level issue to a deeper problem. So again, if you need to go to therapy, if you need to seek deliverance, go do that. It's worth the effort. Investing in yourself and in your future to get to the root of those issues. Like what think back to what drew you to that person in the first place. What made you stay? What made you tolerate the stuff that was negative? What made you overlook the soul ties that were starting to go to the wrong direction? Start to ask yourself questions like that. Get to the root issue, because again, it could be a childhood trauma, it could be a parental wound, it could be a number of things or traumas that we've all are familiar with that we had experienced in our lives. So get to the root of it. And to Tara's point earlier, she said to close your legs. I'm here for it. Give yourself a break from connecting in that way. um, just like if you were doing any other kind of diet or detox, stay away from that thing you're detoxing. If you're detoxing from soul ties, you might have to detox from sex or getting to know people in a more intimate way. Like that's not your time for all that right now. Just give yourself grace, give yourself time to get a break. Um, One of my YouTube aunties, Janice Hilton, she has a devotional called Take Your Cookie Off the Table. I did not read the devotional yet, but I have it. And I thought that it was is an interesting read for those who may want to go forward in that healing journey and really just like be practical and spiritual about, you know what, I'm not going to have sex for a minute. Let me just slow down on this because this is leading me in a direction I don't want to go in anymore. So there's books and plenty of resources out there too that you can read and learn from.
Wow, yo, tonight has been on fire. Yo, I want to say thank you again, Sarah and Heath. Tatiana, thank you for everything that you share. I know it is after 9. We did have one question from Black Belt. You guys got time?
Yeah.
Maybe five to 7 more minutes. Okay. All right. So he had one last question. Black Belt wanted to know. It's off topic, but he says, last question: does Christianity softly require them to procreate? I feel like I've never met Christians that do not want to or do not plan to have kids. I know this is a little off topic, but you're my religion. Google. And then he had mentioned, because I wasn't sure if I had the right question. He was just saying, um, do Christians, they tend to require you to have kids? He doesn't think he's ever met anyone that didn't want kids or didn't plan to have them. So he as a Christian man, like what's your take with regards to this question from Black Belt?
That's a good question. I think Christianity does softly require you, and softly require. I don't know if that's a conundrum or oxymoron, but it does low key kind of put that out there that children are to be had, because and there's scripture to that. There's in Genesis 1:26 and 28 talks about fill the earth. That only can be done one way, when the um, after the fall of man, not the fall of man, after Noah was cast away and on the ark, and then they came on land. The only way for them to fill the earth again was for him to sleep with his daughters, and the brothers sleep with his sisters. That was the only way to populate the earth. So there is a intentionality in that for Christians to procreate, and God looks at the how He passes down blessings and curses through families. There's a whole lot of biblical precedent about that in the Old Testament and New. So yes, that is kind of low key what God really wants, and He gives instructions to the family first for them to bring God's principles on earth. So I think that is a very very good question. I don't know that many married people who do not have children. I mean, who do not want children. I'll say testimony real quick. We tried to have children, but we do not have children. Been married 24 years, and we tried, and we were planning on it, but it just never happened. And so one of the things I said is I don't want any Ishmaels. When Abraham was thinking he can create a baby because God was taking too long. He was like, hi God, let me holler at you for a second. And he went ahead and had a baby with her, and named him Ishmael. And God was like, that's not it. I didn't tell you to do that. I told you to wait for Sarah, and his name's gonna be Isaac. So stop tripping. But we didn't have any children, so we looked at that as like, well, God, if you said this is what you want us to do, then how come you didn't make this happen? But who am I? I'll ask him when I get up there, like what's up with that. So that's my take on it.
Okay, ladies, either you want to chime in and share your perspectives?
So I love this question because I'm openly honest about choosing a child free life, honestly. And I get so many like hate mails. Like I was just got called selfish, like literally on TikTok, talking about I am selfish for not using my uterus in a degree. They want me to use it. So it really shows like the programming that we have just been accustomed to here, because I personally did not ask to be in this playing field. And so how I'm choosing to live this existence is how I'm choosing to live this existence. Why do we all have to go down these social norms and these social programming? Like everybody should do this, everybody should have kids. Obviously, we know that everybody should not have kids because we got too many baby kids running around here, honestly. So let's be real here about this. But I think how they throw this scripture out, be fruitful and multiply. You can be fruitful with your gifts though. You can be fruitful like living as a testimony, because I'm choosing to live similar like Jesus, because Jesus ain't have no kids now, but nobody ever talks about that.
Yo, I definitely appreciate your honesty. And you got Black Belt wanting to shoot a shot with you, but behind that. Yo, yeah, because I mean, he has a similar perspective, in some of our previous shows, people have asked him about, why he doesn't particularly want kids and why he's chosen that too. So I think he can relate to you on that level of making that conscious choice. But I definitely appreciate you for sharing your thoughts.
But let me just say that I don't. If you don't want kids, you don't have to have them. I don't believe. The question is, does Christianity sort of low key propagate that? Yes, it does. But if you don't want kids, you don't have to have them. I don't believe that you have to have children if you don't want them. I know most of my friends don't have kids, and they won't get kids. And there's no like, you missed out. I was watching a TV show last point, and a woman was standing next to a woman who does not have kids. It was House of Cards. And woman did it, the wife of the lady in House of Cards, she does not have any children. Didn't want children, never wanted to have children. Standing next to a woman that had like 2 babies in strollers and stuff. And the woman who with the children asked her, she said, do you ever feel, do you ever regret not having children? And the lady looked right back at her and said, do you regret having them?
We never asked that question, right?
I was like, and checkmate.
Because we never ask. We always ask the people, why don't you have kids? But why do we not ask people, why do you have kids?
Yeah.
What was the intention behind that? Because all we doing is really creating suffering overall to these children if we're not healed.
And suffering the parents. That's the parent.
Yeah.
Rough. I know all my friends have kids. Most of my friends, married friends, have kids, and they dealing with kid stuff. Me, yeah. I'm not dealing with that.
And because it's another thing, like, I can go on this topic, but most people are like trying to fulfill a void with these kids and thinking like a kid is going to make you happy. Like, we should not put that much pressure on a little human, and they're little humans. They're not kids. We should treat them with that high up regard as well.
Nah, yo, I appreciate you guys talking about this because it's important. And I think it goes back to something that you had mentioned earlier, Tara. Sometimes we can get into our societal programming to a certain extent that we as individuals don't stop and ask ourselves, why do we want to be in a relationship? Why do we want to get married? Why do we want to have children? And a lot of times people are doing these things because we've been socially programmed. And to your point, sometimes people get in those situations and they regret it, one way or the other. And I think that one way we can minimize that level of regret is, to your point, taking the time to ask ourselves these questions before we are actually in the situation. And that kind of goes back to the whole conversation of soul ties, right? Is when we stop and we evaluate the impact and the consequences of our behavior, we should ask, well, do I want to, proceed in this type of relationship with this guy, this gentleman, this lady, whatever the case may be. And you find yourself in a position where you could avoid a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of connections if you would just stop and ask yourself, is this what I want? So, nah, I think that that's a really good point. Let's see. So, we had a comment that came in from Tori, said, and men, when they get to a certain age, if they don't have it, they get the what's wrong with you or why don't you have any question? Yeah, that's real. And then let's see. Black Belt says I could talk with Sarah about this for hours on how people like her and I are shamed for not wanting kids, especially if you black and successful.
Yo,
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's talk about it because
yeah.
yeah,
I
Come
got
on, come
experience,
on.
so I'm not
yeah.
having
Well,
please.
Yo, right
Anchor up
there,
in here.
yo,
You up in here, Robin Hood up in here. I see you.
right, you
Black belt.
cooking.
I see you. This is
Yo,
thank you,
cooking.
sir.
So before we go, Tatiana, did you have anything that you wanted to share to Black Belt's question, or are you good?
It's a good question. I do think, yeah, I think just society in general pressures people to get married and have kids. I think it's just something that, because other people do it, you do it. But didn't we learn about peer pressure in school? Like, why are we being peer pressured as we're adults and get older? That's weird. Like, why are we doing this? But sometimes, honestly, Jojo, people take stuff in the Bible that what God said, what Jesus said, what Paul said, and they distort it to serve their own agendas. So sometimes God is the same God that shuts wombs and gives people babies. He's a sovereign God at the end of the day. So if he wants to give a baby to a couple, he'll make it happen. If he doesn't, that's his will at the end of the day. There's only so much we can do. But if a couple wants to have a child, outside of the natural route, there's more ways than ever to go about doing that. Like Tara said, there's a bunch of kids who need a home, especially Black kids, Black American kids, Black kids of other nations. Like if it's on your heart to adopt or be a foster parent, go ahead and do that because these kids now they need guidance, they need structure, they need love. And if it's something that you don't want to do, you shouldn't be shamed for for not wanting to have a kid. I don't think that's a checkpoint in everyone's life. Just like marriage, like y'all said earlier, not everybody's going to get married, not everybody's going to be a parent, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, perfect way to close out tonight's show. Really great questions. Black Belt, Tori, Tiffany, everybody that was sharing questions tonight. We appreciate you guys. Tara, thank you for joining us on the live show. Heath, thank you for joining us on the live show, man. You both have just been absolutely amazing. Before we go, just want to allow you both to share any last or closing words that you may have before we jet. So, ladies first. Tara, any last or closing words?
Yes, I want to first, I'll close with the one last remark because how they have been trying to persuade everyone into going like this marriage route and this children route is honestly for capitalism. This is how they make money. Kids make money. Romance make money. So we have to understand this capitalistic society we're in. But also, and lastly, closing out with the soul ties as well, make sure you just keep your reputation on point because all we got is our name and our integrity means everything. We should focus on things that money can't buy. So your peace of mind is truly success. The inner love that you have within yourself, the confidence, your energy, your aura, protect those things at all costs because before you walk into a room, they feel your energy And if your energy is heavy because you got this soul tie, that's going to affect your opportunities in the long run. So make sure you carry yourself with lighter. And how to carry yourself with lightness is being present in this moment, being present with yourself and being present with others, not expecting things from other people, and allowing the connection to flow effortlessly. And then everything else will flow into your life as well. I just thank y'all so much for this opportunity. This was so much fun. Thank
It
you.
was. It was. Thank you. Thank you. Heath, what are your last or your closing words that you like to share with our audience tonight?
One of my closing words is stop having me go after Tara. That's one of my closing words. Good gracious, man, making it hard for a brother. So, but real talk, a lot of talk has been had about soul ties and its relationship to sex, and that is the most obvious. However, there are other realms and lanes of soul ties that can be you that women can get hemmed up with, and it stems back to their own identity and how they see themselves, and how they perceive themselves, and the value and the worth that they ascribe to themselves. And so, I would say make sure that you have a very healthy and clear understanding of who you are before you start presenting yourself as available to somebody else. Because if you do not, then there is a propensity and a potential for someone to define you, and then you embrace that definition and become their definition of who you are, and that becomes a soul tie even without the sex. I'm speaking from experience, and I'm speaking from just practical understanding and some biblical principles that I don't have time to go into. But that is a very key aspect. You have a healthy identity of who you are and who you are not. That even extends into marriage, because in a marriage, there's more access, there's more influence, there's more commingling, and there's legit soul ties that are created in marriage. And if you are wedded to someone who has identified you as someone less than, beneath, or subservient to, then that's a power struggle that you will have the rest of your marriage or until someone breaks. And by breaks, I mean you can either give up or someone just breaks down. And so I don't want that for you. I've been in this game. I've been consulting with relationships with couples for 22 years, and I've seen a lot of things. And I understand the weight that it has on women. One of my close friends right now is struggling with a marriage of 20 years with someone that she is not happy with, and I'll just leave it at that. And so it's very important that you get a great, healthy understanding of who you are and how you want to present yourself before you start presenting yourself.
All right. Okay. Yo, y'all, the two of y'all are amazing. Tatiana, you have any last or closing words you want to leave our audience with tonight?
Yeah, thank you, Tara and Heath, so much for your perspectives and your wisdom. We love it. Yes, the audience loved you guys. Thank you so much for all that you had to share. For y'all, if you all are interested in knowing what the Bible says about sex and possibly soul ties, I would recommend looking at 1 Corinthians 6, where it talks about sexual immorality. Like there's some points that we might have touched on in today's episode that you can look at. So 1 Corinthians 6, study that for your reference, get some context behind it, because I don't want to say anything out of there that might be out of context, but check it out, because the Bible's still relevant for everyday life. So the people who are tuned into this, who want to have a godly relationship, a God-centered relationship, it's important to know what God's word says about relationships, especially sex, because why? He created it, not Trey Songz. All right, that's it.
Yo, you funny. You funny. Yo, thank you again, Heath, Tara. I appreciate you guys. Everybody that tuned in, we appreciate you as well. We'll be back again next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, for another amazing show, another group of outstanding special guests. But with that being said, we'll catch you guys next week. Until then, you all stay blessed.